Welcome to the Steroids Podcast with your host, Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Boom! Boom! Let's get started here. The Steroids Podcast is brought to you by Ultimate Guide to ROIDS, 109-page ebook by Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Now, for the first time in bodybuilding history, you have someone with no corporate interests and no obligation to please anyone, not walking on eggshells to not offend. Ultimate Guide to ROIDS gives you the information, the whole truth, not a full truth and a half truth, full truth. Ultimate Guide to ROIDS gives you the keys to the Lamborghini, gives you the information, and lets you decide what to do with it. It's a crime this information has been suppressed this long. Now let's get on with the podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Steroids Podcast. Dan, the bodybuilder from Thailand here. Today's episode, I called up a friend, and he's a big bodybuilder. He's a cut-up bodybuilder. He's got to remain anonymous, so can't say who he is, but I feel like at this point in the relationship between myself speaking to you guys, the listeners, it's enough for me to tell you guys that, this is somebody that, he's at a development level where you guys, most gym goers are going to think, that would be my ultimate goal is to look, something like that as a bodybuilder. Okay. So his specialty is having gone through the normal steroid cycles that everyone uses and then switching over to not using testosterone in his cycles. He prefers to use Deca and Equipoise as bases without testosterone now. So we have a great conversation about a very open, candid conversation about high dosage steroid use, the real dosages that bodybuilders are using. When you see guys and you think, wow, that guy is jacked. You go to the gym and you think, that guy is seriously jacked. And, I wonder what he's on, We're able to talk openly about this in this conversation. So you're able to hear him and I have an honest conversation about, what it's really like to be a bodybuilder and use steroids, and a really cool angle from someone who is doing things the old school way, before the internet. Once the internet has gone here, now it's basically illegal in bodybuilding culture, to not use testosterone in your cycle. But that's not the way it always was. Actually, that's not the way it traditionally was. Bodybuilding as we know it, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and even part of the 90s, testosterone usage was very low dose or non-existent for most bodybuilders. They were using Deca as the base of their cycles, and they were doing that without testosterone. So this is something that if you've only grown up and you've got all your steroid education from the internet and learning about steroids from the internet, you would be shocked to hear this, that's the way that steroids were always traditionally used to build all the golden era physiques, etc., was without testosterone, but using Deca instead of testosterone, and using no testosterone with that. So that's the way it was. I mean, I'm not going to go over that, and you can do that own research for yourself in order to know that. But that's the way that bodybuilding always was until about the mid 90s, the early 90s. Things changed. So enjoy this episode of the Steroids Podcast, guys.
Well, I started listening to you a while back. I was doing some PD coaching for a company, and multiple people, the ones that were interested in more than the how do I do self-prescribed TRT, the guys that were interested a little bit more kept on saying your name. This is probably a couple years ago, and that's where I found you, and I was like, oh man, somebody's speaking the truth finally.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird too with all the coaches out there that it like no one does still. It's almost bizarre, mind blowing.
Everybody. Oh well, that's pretty heavy. I don't, and you know, it's hard to tell somebody what's heavy for them. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
without seeing you, without knowing you, I can't tell you what's heavy for you. You have to tell me what's heavy for you.
Yeah, well, the fact that anything, if you say 1,000 milligrams or above on the internet, it's just
Oh,
like you get this shock reaction.
yeah, totally. You say it in person a lot of times, you get a shock reaction because of that too.
Uh huh. You
People,
you 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 when you yeah, I guess you're right. If you do discuss that like in a gym or something, people will be shocked.
yeah, certain people will be shocked. Uh, you know, I've personally found that there's a sweet spot for everything, and you know, depending on your goal too. But uh, I find that there's a sweet spot for me that sometimes differs from other people drastically. But I have certain sweet spots, and I've tested those sweet spots dramatically.
Yeah, you know what? Different compounds seem to have different sweet spots too. Where one compound you can really raise it up into thousands of milligrams, but then other ones they kind of do better around. Most compounds do really well around 1,000 milligrams. It seems like that. If you run anything at around 1,000 milligrams, you get pretty much the full characteristic effects. Sometimes it can get stronger if you keep on going up, but it's a generally good dosage to see what something does.
You know, on some of these solo cycles, I found something else to be true that for me personally, to meet my estrogen needs, I'm having to
Hmm.
go up to around the 2 gram mark. When I do the solos, so when I'm running like an EQ solo or I'm running a Deca solo, I'm having to go higher with it. And a couple times where I combine the two, I could split them both about 1 gram and get near results. But I've noticed that I'm going closer to 2 grams with them to get my estrogen to where I need it.
Oh, that's really interesting. So with going up like that, because they aromatize Equipoise and Deca into that weaker estrogen, the estrone instead of the estradiol.
Exactly.
So you have to run the dosage up pretty high, huh, in order to get enough estrogen.
Totally. I think of it like I want to meet my sexual needs. I want to meet my emotional needs. I want to meet my growth needs. And to get there, you know, I want that special little number. And when I go for like a non-sensitive test,
Hmm.
my estradiol will read just, you know, you'd be shocked how high it reads. But when you go for a sensitive test, it'll show my E2 is real low and it's my E1 that's real high. But
Mm. Are are you a big aromatizer on tests? Do you create a lot of estrogen from it?
brother, I mean, at 200, I'm running AIs.
Okay.
When I go up to 1 gram, I'm running Aromatase a day, every day. I can switch it up to Arimidex, but it's the same thing. I don't like Arimidex in the same way. Arimidex, you know, there's so many things you have to worry about it health wise. Where Aromatase has a lot less side effects. It doesn't affect your HDL, LDL in the same way, and it's
Aromasin's great. Feels good too.
steroidal. So you know,
Yeah. Yeah. It can be like a light anabolic in women, I think.
yeah, I think so too. I've heard that. But
Uh,
I like it better. But whenever I did, then another issue I had with it is when I had my when I'd come off cycle, I'd start coming down from 1 gram. I'd have these giant estrogen blooms afterwards, and I would be fighting it with Letro. I would be doing everything you could for roughly 7 days when the bloom quailed. But I would fight it and fight it and fight it, and
mhm.
I didn't feel like I was getting my growth potential when I'm sitting there for eating all those AIs, and you're paying for all those AIs. They're not cheap. That's one of the most expensive parts of the cycle.
Oh yeah, and not to mention it just makes you feel like something is wrong when you're taking, like, say you're taking. I'm about the same estrogen sensitive as you. So if I was running 1,500 milligrams testosterone a week and I wasn't using Letro as my AI, I'd have to be taking 2 or 3 milligrams of Arimidex per day, or same thing with Aromasin, which it just doesn't feel right taking all that. It feels like something is wrong
Totally,
psychologically.
totally. But what I've noticed is, so I've spent the last year just completely taking test out of my diet. I just literally exactly a little over a year. So The end of February last year, I quit test altogether, and I gave it clear time as I added in EQ, dealt with my bloom, and I've done no test in exactly a year now. So I've experimented with a lot of things. So my main one, I started with my EQ cycles, and going through those.
Did you like EQ back when you were using testosterone, and then you decided I'm just going to try this without test?
Man, that's a great question. I had issues with EQ, Deca, everything I did with test would have caused my test to aromatize harder. So if I threw EQ in there, all of a sudden I'm fighting with even more AIs, and the people are like, you hear the bro science of, oh, that doesn't aromatize. But the E1, in my opinion, at least for me, and everybody's different, but the E1 would cause the aromatization to skyrocket for me. So all of a sudden I'm eating even more AIs than before. And also when I added in any kind of NOR, I would be fighting progesterone issues. I'd be sitting there cabering it up. I'd be doing, if I was pramming, just depending on whatever it was, I was going full bore trying to quell whatever was going on at the time.
Yeah.
So when I switched to EQ, I instantly knew a difference. So my first EQ cycle was EQ, DHB, and Tren A, and no flare-ups, no AIs, no nothing, just a clean, real beautiful cycle. I got real vascular. I felt like the DHB, I always feel like DHB makes me tired. I don't know.
You know what? A lot of people have questions about that one. I've used it too, and I wasn't too impressed with it. How much did you use in that cycle?
That cycle I was running 700 a week.
Okay, I used a similar dosage. I was using about 700 to a gram per week, and like it wasn't comparable to the strength of the Tren, right?
No, not at all. I don't even, here's how I think of it, and I might be thinking of this wrong, but this is how I think of it. You think of a DHT coming from test and it's at a 500, and then you think of a boldenone the same way, as far as how anabolic it is. Like if it's going down from a boldenone, and I've read in different places, because you read different values, but I've read in certain places it's around 200. But how it acts in me, I don't necessarily see that. I see more of the vascularity, and I get more of the drive. So I notice that my cardio goes way up.
Okay, cool.
But
the anabolic effects or the recomposition effects, you're not seeing that so much from it.
I didn't, and I didn't take it very high. So,
700. I mean, not a lot of people are taking more than that with the DHB.
Yeah, but to see something's full effects, you got to kind of touch the ceiling and pull back, and to really see how you're going to react. Find your ceiling and pull back, and you're going to kind of go okay. But I had a hard time doing it with that cycle because I had Tren A in it, and I had it at the same dosage. So a lot of my beautiful benefits from that one were kind of the
overshadowing.
Yeah, exactly. But I switched from that one to the EQ Mast, and I left some Tren A in there, and I went to Superdrol.
That's a cool combination.
I'm a Superdrol lover.
It's like the best steroid. it's really crazy.
People, it gets such a bad rap, and people are like, "Oh, it's so liver toxic." I have blood work from it, and you would not believe how good my blood work was on Superdrol. And,
really? Wow.
I will send it to you, man. You would not believe it. And I just what it does to me overall, I almost can't compare it to something. It's its own.
Yeah. It's like Tren, but milligram per milligram, it's stronger, and it doesn't have the weird sexual effects. It doesn't have the weird dreaming. Yeah.
That's another one. When I ran that with test, I would have issues with my nipple sensitivity, and I would assume it was prolactin related. But,
you're getting that from Superdrol.
I was getting that from Superdrol. As soon as I took test out of the situation, I haven't had any sensitivity to anything since. So in the last year, I have had nothing like that.
Mm.
Which,
I was wondering when you were running the EQ, how much? And actually, I had this question too with when you run Deca solo is. Do you have to take more than like what would be a TRT dose milligram per milligram in order to have like a normal functioning sex drive? Because on testosterone, it's like 200 milligrams, and sex drive is fine, it's optimal. But with the EQ or the Deca, is 200 milligrams not even going to come near cutting it?
no, I haven't. Well, I'll say this: with Deca, I didn't try 200. I think
Uh-huh.
I think my floor started with 5 there. So where I started I like to titrate up, titrate down.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but I started at 500 with that cycle. But it at first I did have issues when I started my Deca cycles. So I didn't really have issues until I had a Dbol in with Deca, and then I did get Deca Dick for a little while. And but other than that, I haven't. Other than when I had a Dbol, I haven't had Deca Dick. So even when it was Deca and EQ, nothing. It didn't give me that effect, which it also leads on to my thought that EQ and Deca both lean on the E1 side of things.
Hmm. Yeah, and then D-ball definitely brings in a very testosterone type of estrogen.
Super strong, super
See,
strong.
a lot of people say, a lot of people do get good sexual effects from D-ball, but then there's another subset of people who do not, who get kind of a negative sexual effect from D-ball. I would say actually myself, one of them. Erection's definitely not as good on D-ball as when not on D-ball.
I agree completely. What I found is I started at 50 and I actually worked my way down on that. So 50. And by the time I found a sweet spot on that, I think I was taking like 10 milligrams twice a day. And I had really good effects with that at that lower level with D-ball. But it's
It works
still,
great at that dosage, and you can
I
use
know,
it for a long time.
I agree. And I have blood work from that one, and you would not even know I was on gear. You would look at it and go, what is going on with this guy?
Hmm. I agree with you that D-ball, pretty much everybody's running at 50 milligrams. That's the really common dosage for D-ball, 50 milligrams. But it's that 10, 15, 20, 25 milligram range, maximum up to 30, where you get those really extreme anabolic effects that it gives, and strength and everything. But you don't get that really bloated, thick skin effect.
Yeah, it really shines at that lower milligram, I believe. I get a really neat mental effect from it, which I don't think I get from many other things. I get it from test, I could say, but I get a really neat mental effect where it puts me in a really fantastic mood. So,
Oh, cool. Yeah, a lot of people say that. One of my friends here in Turkey just started D-ball, and he was saying he remembers again, what it feels like, because as soon as he started it, he was feeling that.
yeah, that positivity. Yeah, I liked it. When I went over from my Q, whenever so in August, I decided I was going to go back into sizing. The show I was trying to prep for got canceled because of COVID. And
Hmm.
I just went full bore back into adding size back on, and that I kind of thought this through. So I knew I didn't want to. I was nervous about the Deca only because in past when I my TRT is 400 test, 400 Deca, and then a couple different orals depending on the time of year. Uh,
Cool,
but
cool.
I would get Deca Dick at 400 with test. So
Hmm.
I was kind of scared of it there for
With or
last.
without, with or without Caber.
Either way, I would just be fighting it.
Okay,
You add Caber and I'd be fighting it. You take it out, and I'm still fighting it. But now I'm having other issues. So
okay.
I just had constant issues with it, and I actually got so nervous of it that I spent about a year just sticking it. As it came in, I just stick it in the drawer and be like, "Well, I got some really good Pharma Deca for someday." And
Oh, you just stopped using it.
I just stopped using it there eventually because I got sick of fighting it. And so I kept on. I like old school bodybuilding. So when I look at things, I'm not the guy that I believe genetically is going to be a 300-pound mass monster, but I can look really tight and I can give that bubbly muscle if I want to, and I can do certain things. But to get that, I like the old school look. I like the Mike Mentzer's looks. I like looking at guys like Tom Platz. I like that.
Oh yeah.
I like that body style. Do you know what I mean? I like that look.
That's what everybody likes. You know, there's only a very small subset of bodybuilder people that like this other, science lab look. But when you see the old school bodybuilders type, that's the kind of thing that when you see that in real life, you go, damn, it just blows your mind.
Yeah, it looks. It looks unnaturally natural. Do you know what I mean? It
Yeah,
looks.
yeah, I do know what you mean.
I, I just like it. So I listened to a lot of Tom Platt stuff, and I found some really neat old school Mike Mentzer stuff. And the stuff everything had in common was that they weren't test guys. And I loved it. I was like, man, if they don't need it. And I listened to a whole little speech Platz gave about it. And, he gave his reasons, which, aren't my reasons. But to me, I've always looked at, for me, because of how test aromatases, I've always looked at it as like a pro hormone in my body, as a pro hormone to E2 or a pro hormone to DHT, because for me, it's just flying through the testosterone stage and I'm fighting everything else.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just, it moves.
What did Platz say, by the way? Why did he like it?
Well, Platz felt like it was more anabolic, so he felt like when you were going to use things, you should look at less anogenic things, and when you're going to run a cycle, you should look at less anogenic things and go into more anabolic things. But from what I could tell, too, he was a D-ball guy, and that's something Metzer had in common with him. So Metzer, I actually found somewhere they were talking milligrams, and there was one talking Metzer, I think it was around 2,700 on his Deca.
Yeah,
And
I saw that. I saw that one too.
And then later in life, I saw one where he was doing MPP around 900. So, and that's him as an older man. But
and that might have been per day. He said per week.
Yeah, totally.
Because wasn't he on meth during that time too? So
yeah, totally. Yeah, you know exactly.
He's not a moderate. He's not a moderate man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll leave that part alone. Yeah, but getting that look, it was something that you look at and you're like, okay, so that is a no test look, and you look at it, and everybody thinks of Deca and they think wet. It's the instant thing. Everybody thinks, they're like, oh, this is gonna be wet gains. I'm gonna lose my lines. But I feel like you get that from the conversion with estrogen. So and for me, it's how E2 hits me. So without the E2 in me, I keep a tighter look with it. I look full from inside, but my skin still keeps that look. And I'm not going to say that my growth hormone doesn't help with that a good deal.
Do you get water retention from the growth hormone? Even with pharmaceutical grade growth hormone, that's one of the main effects really that come on. At least using it with testosterone. Never used it without testosterone. There is water retention, certainly, especially above 3 IUs a day.
Yeah, I get slight water retention. As long as I keep my water real high, I usually don't hold water terribly. I do get slight water retention though. I do fight that when I take out my growth, you can actually see it go down. But I also hold a lot of water intermuscularly with growth, so it gives me it helps that bubble look that I like.
Absolutely.
And I'm not a young bird anymore. I'm 36, so I get so many benefits out of growth that I don't look at it as a way to get big. I look at it as my growth as a way to stay healthy. More of my recovery side of things. You hear people talk about yada yada with getting huge with growth, and I don't think growth makes you huge. I think there's ways to make growth make a person huge, but I don't go down that way right now.
Yeah, are you talking about taking the big bolus shot post workout versus taking it throughout the day?
Well, I do take mine throughout the day. I think if you're going to get huge with growth, you need to look at IGF-1 factors. I think a lot of times when people are wanting to get huge with growth, they're going to add insulin. They're going to they're going to look at the different analogs of insulin. They're going to look at the different types. There's different types of insulin, of course, that would work different ways and would affect it in different ways. Like the long insulins, when you lay them down, they can increase IGF-1 output by 30 times. But all analogs don't work the same way because none of them are insulin. They're all analogs of insulin. So none of, short insulin, R insulin, they're all acting differently. So
30 times, man. Which one is that? That's insane.
I know. Lantus, look it up.
That's Lantus. Okay. You know what? I was going to guess that. I was almost expecting that to come out of your mouth. Yeah.
Me, I'm a big Metformin fan because I like to, especially when I'm in size, I think about my blood sugar and I think about longevity. So I'm a Metformin fan. And also, I don't think it affects where I'm going with my growth and where some people are. I'm not worried about if it shuts down any IGF-1. I put enough in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Metformin, I did a lot of experimentation with that too. I used at one point I used Norditropin for a year straight, and during that year I was experimenting with Metformin a lot, and I really noticed that the difference in the Metformin effect from 1,000 milligrams a day to 2,000 milligrams a day was enormous. 2,000 milligrams per day, I was getting effects from Metformin that was similar to like adding Anadrol into my stack.
I 100% agree with you. 2,000 milligrams is my sweet spot.
Nice. Same experience.
Yeah, I loved it. And I keep that currently in right now. That's something if I'm doing off season and my carbs are extremely high, I'm going to have my Metformin.
Mm-hmm. It really adds to that ball-shaped muscle. Extreme pumps in the gym too.
Exactly. I take it out in the summertime, but I like that stringy, real tight, paper thin skin and look in the summertime. I like, and I hold lean, so in the summertime I like to show it.
Mm-hmm. What do you do to? Well, I guess you said your metabolism is so fast. You have to eat 7,000 calories a day. So I guess being lean is absolutely no trouble for you at all.
Brother, I can actually diet on, like last summer I was dieting on 4,800 calories a day. And people were like looking at me like I was like gonna waste away. They're like, "What?" I literally had a buddy be like, "Man, are you gonna be okay?" And he's like, "You're getting
What the heck?
And I'm like, "Brother, I feel good." But
Man, after you added in growth hormone, your metabolism must have just been on another level. What?
Before growth, I mean, I was probably on a big bulk. I'd probably get up to maybe 4,800. After growth, just changed my world with that.
Yeah.
It eats. It eats. And I'm also one of these guys that I don't get a lot of hunger issues. A lot of anabolics just make me hungrier. If I take Anadrol, you should tie me to a post because I will eat anything in sight. Just an uncontrolled. And the only one that actually gives me issues is Dbol. I take Dbol and instantly I am not hungry for anything.
That makes you nauseated, huh?
I wouldn't say nauseated. I just stopped thinking about food.
Got it. Yeah.
I'm not really sure where it is.
Yeah, I wanted to actually. You mentioned a while back in the conversation. Sorry to move back to this, but you were mentioning your Equipoise and Masteron cycle. I was just wondering how that went. If you could go over that.
But that was. I'm glad you went back to that. That's actually my favorite cycle of all time. That's actually what I used to diet last summer and got the best results I'd ever gotten. And as far as it goes, the best look I've ever seen. I had people nonstop come up to me and go, "Man, you are trend out of your gourd," and I wasn't touching it. It was just I had EQ, Masti, and Anadrol. My EQ was at 21. My Mast was at 14. My Anadrol was at 700.
So
And
you're taking 1,400 Masteron per week.
yep,
That's a really interesting dosage because that's the dosage that when they invented Masteron, prescribed it for breast cancer, that was the dosage they gave women to combat breast cancer. So you were taking a prescribable by doctors dosage there.
that's exactly where I got it.
That's where you got it.
That's exactly where I got it.
Man, you were still well researched. This is fun talking to you because it's like it's like we can really relate to a lot of the
Yeah,
things they're saying.
I enjoy that. That's why I enjoy your show so much. I'm at the point where I don't always learn a whole lot unless I'm hearing somebody that knows a whole lot. So I can listen to most things and it's just, it's fun, but it's dribble. When I listen to you, I can actually sometimes pick up on things and be like, okay, that's a really good way of looking at that. But you have to find somebody that can speak your language.
That's cool. Yeah, so the Masteron and the Equipoise. What about sex drive on that? Was that what? Because Masteron, 1,400 milligrams of Masteron should make your sex drive outrageous. But I've used Masteron without testosterone before. I just used Winstrol, Masteron, and Proviron together, and I had a horrible sex drive because I had no estrogen. And then I added in testosterone, and every time I use Masteron now, it's like I take 300 milligrams a week. Sex drive's outrageous. So what was that like because you had the Equipoise at 2,100, so you were getting some estrogen.
I would say that my sex drive rarely goes low. I'm like a 36-year-old rabbit. And that was no different on that one. She would have to run away from me. Yeah, it was that, wake up like you're 16 years old and just as almost all I could think about. That
It was
was
like that. It was like that.
that was one of the on my list when I wrote when I get done with the cycle, I give myself little notes about it. That was one of the things on the detractors of that cycle was over
Detractors, yeah. Okay, yeah. You know what? That doesn't surprise me because it's the weirdest thing about the Masteron, the way it affects your brain, is it's like after you're done, then you're expecting, okay, well, now I've got, I don't know, at least 10 hours or something till I'm feeling like I gotta have it again. But you're talking 10 to 15 minutes, and it's
Yes,
seriously on your mind again.
yeah. 2 hours feels like 2 days.
And that so the Equipoise together with the Masteron, then it created that kind of tremble and look you were saying. Was there enough fullness?
I actually sent you a picture of it. There was I had extreme fullness. I would say that I felt, in my opinion, my abs flattened out a little bit. I could do things to pop them out for like a short window if I wanted to, but I think my overall look. But I get the same thing from if I ran Tren. I would have got the same flattened ab look at that point. But the separation I got, especially towards the end of that, was just gorgeous. And I can tell you that was the hardest one I ever stopped at. I mean, as I was on that, I thought, man, maybe I should just turn this into my permanent TRT cycle or something. I enjoyed that one just tremendously.
Would you ever use it for a bulker or for muscle gain or just for cutting, looking good?
Now that I've gone both ways with it, and I've done the Deca thing, my opinion's so changed on Deca anymore. I'm right now trying to figure out my summer stack right now, and my opinion's so changed on Deca. I'm trying to figure a way to run my Deca through the summer and get the look I'm wanting. But
because you're not getting any water retention out of Deca.
It's just the things I do get, the cushion on my joints at my age, the intermuscular water retention that's adding with everything else, kind of the triage I'm using with it. Just everything's going so well with it. And another thing is the mental I get out of Deca. it is just a whole nother thing. When I would have Deca with test, I would almost get depressed. Uh, and I don't even want to say depressed. I'd get this cold feeling like I just couldn't give a shit about anything. Like, I knew I loved my wife, but I wasn't, you'd get real cold about it. I knew I felt this way about something, but I'd get real cold about it. I wouldn't show anybody I felt that way, but I could feel it on the inside. And Deca by itself is a completely different thing. It's like having control of all your emotions all the time, and I'm really enjoying it. Or at least for me.
That sounds freaking perfect. Having control of your emotions all the time. That's something that everyone's basically looking for. That's why people use recreational drugs.
I've never experienced anything like it. It's very interesting to me, and I'm right now trying to figure out how to bring that into to keep that going in my reality. It's where before you'd lose your cool at something or something. I have a real neat way of being real. I can look inside real easily and go, no, how about we do it like this? Where before, certain things you'd hit the right button and you go, no, I'm not doing that. It really gives me an outside look at me. So I'm really enjoying it. I think that's one of the best benefits of the Deca only. And I honestly didn't get that feeling until I took EQ all the way out. So with EQ in, I did get, I did have other feelings, but as soon as I had the EQ all the way out, I immediately started noticing a mental change.
So is this now Deca completely with no other male hormones in? This is just Deca?
Yeah, that was just Deca. Since then, I've added in Deca Primo, and then I took out the Primo, or I added Superdrol with the Primo at the same time, and then I took those out and I put into Anadrol. Really, what I've tried to do over this last year is find what works best for me without test. And, everything's so much different without test. So, like, everything that I thought I knew, it was only what I knew with test. So when I take out the test, everything acts differently. Everything feels differently. The results are all different. So I'm kind of relearning me.
Yeah, I think everybody that uses steroids can relate to that, just because they know that when they put the testosterone in, it definitely changes the characteristics of all the other steroids. So what you're saying about that, if you're relearning yourself without test, but you're still getting results and you're not getting bad side effects, because that's what most people are afraid of. There's this internet culture that exists now. If you learned about steroids since the internet has existed, that you have to use testosterone, there's no other way. And if you go on a forum and say something about that, not using testosterone, everyone will scream at you and call you stupid. But before the internet, the way that you're doing it now was the standard way to do it the whole time that steroids have existed.
Yeah, it was the base of everything. But
how much
before
what were you gonna say?
Before AIs, people didn't really use test in the same way we do now.
Yeah. Most people used it in a very low dosage, or none at all.
Or none at all.
When you run the Deca alone, without anything else, what dosage do you find to be the best?
What I've found is I'm really, when it's completely by itself, I like in between 21 and 3,000. I've gone a little bit higher than that. But I think 21 is kind of like where I'm getting enough estrogen to fill every need that I need. I don't have any issues. If anything, I'm probably as horny as ever, and I'm thinking about it, more and more. But I think it's somewhere around 21. I think I could start noticing it, getting really good above 15, but I hit that sweet spot between 21. And when I go above 3, I didn't see any benefits that I wasn't noticing, oh, this is better at this. I wasn't seeing something and going, wow, this is just, amazing.
What about
So,
the gym performance on Deca only at that kind of milligrammage level, above 2 grams or so?
well, my gym performance is pretty outstanding. I work out with just some amazing people at probably one of the strongest gyms you'd ever go to, and I'm on the pace with everybody around me there. Uh, with my Deca only, I'm declining my 405 for 10, and you know, I feel like my strength's up right now. My strength did go down with EQ and mass solo. I did notice that I wasn't as strong as, but my body weight was down and my carbohydrates were down. And, you know, I know this has to be said, but diet for me is just everything. So as I do all these changes, I form my diet to what my goal is at the time. But, strength for me comes with carbohydrates too. So you put enough carbs in there and I'm going to be strong on almost everything.
Oh, really, really? Because I mean, taking out the testosterone for a lot of people, that'll take out a lot of strength. That's kind of why I was wondering, is if your strength wasn't being affected negatively when you're on
No,
Deca without test.
no, I can still, my squats are still real high. I mean, I haven't noticed any of that. If anything, I'd say my strength has gone up. This off season's probably been my strongest off season. So my strength has been stronger this year. And I probably made more strength gains this year. Now I say that out loud. Uh, my numbers have probably gone up substantially this year. And, because of how I've done it this year, I've switched from this to this, trying to see the benefits and side effects from different cycles with it. Uh, I've had a lot of time where you'd hit a plateau and then you change this and you'd break that plateau pretty quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
I've had probably, in the cycling of cycles, I've had a lot of just amazing strength gains this off season.
Man, the way you're talking about it seems like Deca is like the best steroid.
You know, 2 years ago, I would have literally told you I don't use Deca. Uh, and now I'm starting to think Deca is the best steroid. Uh,
Yeah.
it's weird to say out loud. It's weird to think, but it's just for me. It seems to be working perfectly. And in this, I hadn't really paid attention to other people much, but now I'm hearing that that there's a lot of people going Deca only, and I don't know what they're running with it and other forth, but I've heard there's other big bodybuilders going Deca only. And another thing I wanted to talk to you about is everybody has that theory of running multiple NORs together and where that's going
Yeah. Yeah. Speak on that. Yeah.
and with test I would agree with that. With test, and if I did generic growth hormone and I had Tren in there with test, I would have if I did Anadrol and Tren with test, I would have issues. But now that
Mm-hmm.
I've taken the test out and I'm uh, Deca Decatrin or Decatrin Anadrol or just the different combinations I've thrown through there, I I've had none of those issues. So to me, that almost speaks to E2 being the cause of a lot of that, at least in my body.
Yeah, like the testosterone mixing with the 19 NORs, and that's what's causing the prolactin surge or whatever.
I've had no prolactin issues at all since I've taken test out.
And
Even
no caber use with the
no,
high deca or anything.
I have just some amazing caber right now. It's I had it from before I was like, oh, I'll go through this quick. This is such good caber. I hate that. And I've not touched it in a year, and every time I look at it, I'm like, that's saving some really good money right there.
Huh. Wow. So that got rid of that problem too.
Completely, completely.
And
Yeah,
what about the mental effects then of like Tren? Because Trenbolone with testosterone, for example, has a lot of aggressive effects and road rage. You're driving in the car and you're yelling at people. What? How is it with with the Deca, do you get the classic Tren side effects when you combine that together?
That's. I'm glad you asked that one. I should have said that earlier. With EQ, I got less of it. So when I did it with Test, I would definitely get trend head. I'd maybe go buy a new truck that I didn't need, or I'd do this classic stupid trend shit.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved on with EQ, I would actually get overly nice until I added Anadrol. So like if you were talking something really nice, I'd want to pat you on the back, or I noticed that I was getting really like ultra nice with Tren, and I was like, well, this is strange. Now that now that it's with Deca, I can't even tell you I noticed something from Tren. It doesn't wear my body out the same. I don't lose sleep the same. I don't. It's complete. It's a completely different animal. I still
Oh,
sweat good.
weird.
I still get a really neat physical effect from it, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't get any of the. I don't get any of the negativity. And if anything, my spouse would say the same. If anything, now Trend makes me overly lovey-dovey. So it's almost like my body's seeing it as an estrogen or something now, or an analog of estrogen, which I've heard it shows up as that, but
Yeah, on the blood
uh,
test. Yeah.
on a blood test, but I've never gotten that effect at all. And now I'm like a movie would come on when I'm running training, like just the climactic music, and mind you, I don't have any E2 in me, and it's the climactic moment, and all of a sudden I'm tearing up, and I'm like, well, I guess it's the trend.
Wow. So there's not like a violent dreams or something like feeling really irritable or uh, overly socially aggressive and stuff. You're not getting those kind of effects now from the trend running it with Deca.
If anything, I worry that I'm underly socially aggressive lately because of it. So
Mm.
if anything, it's doing the exact opposite as the classic characteristics and what it's classically done to me. So
Hmm.
I'm having to relearn everything right now. So I had a lot of I don't want to because not everything I know is bro science. A lot of it's studies, but I'm having to relearn everything I knew. So everything that I thought I knew that, and mind you, I did head coaching for a long time. So I would tell people, oh no, this is the rule with that. This is the rule of thumb with that. But what I'm learning is uh, this changes the rule of thumb.
Mm. Yeah, it's like you're relearning how to use anabolics now with this as the base.
Completely. And I after everything, I'm starting to think that I'm gonna go full bore with my Deca because I'm enjoying it so much. That I know I said this, but the mental part of it is just uh, it's overwhelmingly satisfying when I take everything else out. It's just you're walking around with such a positive attitude, and I'm
That caught my
noticing
ear. That caught my ear big time when you said that before.
I'm walking around with everything I do. I'm coming at it with a different kind of attitude, like, oh, this can be done, or oh, I can do that, or and before I didn't have that attitude, so I definitely feel it. It's strongly the Deca.
Hmm. So what is the best cycle then to do with if somebody is going to be switching over to, or they want to try what you're doing. They hear this and they're thinking that sounds good. I want to try that. What do they
Well,
do? And then what's the best? The best.
so what I've learned with Deca is keeping my A2 out. So I think any DHTs with Deca, I've enjoyed Mass with Deca, I've enjoyed Primo with Deca. They both give a really good look with Deca. I think
Mm-hmm.
those are both good starting points with Deca, in seeing how any person would react to them with Deca only. And I think a lot of people are going to get the same result as long as they can completely give it time to clear that test out of your system. A lot of people are going to be on cypionate or nantate, and they're not thinking of the 12-day clear time or 14-day clear time. which that's only half-life. So really, you could have the E2 in for longer than that. But you're not thinking about that, and then they're going, oh, blah, blah, blah. But you got to give that clear time to it, and then give that Deca time to start shining. And remember that Deca takes a longer time to come in. So you could actually give it a week clear time, and then start loading in that Deca according to where you're going to start. And they should be clearing and kicking in roughly about the same time there. And I think anything with a DHT with it would be a great place to start for anybody with Deca only. I think going on
starting off with a stack then, not just starting off with only Deca, but starting off like combining it with Masteron or Equipoise or Winstrol or something.
Yeah, I say that just for not knowing the person. So like once you know yourself, I would try it with Deca only and see where my milligram is. I personally found that the higher I took my Deca, the more I enjoyed Deca. So it was when it was at 500, I didn't get the benefits of Nandrolone like when it was at 1500. But the mental effects were starting to just me know that I was doing something special around 1500. It hit me that this is changing things. And the growth of it this year, I just had some substantial growth. And at my age, you don't get growth the same way anymore. You know, things slow down and you're happy with a 2 pound year. And, you know, because 2 pounds changes your physique quite a bit. And you're happy with those years. So when you get a 12-pound year or something like that, that's something you pay attention to.
Yeah. So under like 1500 milligrams, then like it's not so great. You think there's a strong threshold where you've got to be using it at a high dosage in order to get this great effect that you're talking about? Because a lot of guys are going to hear this and they're going to think, oh, you know, I don't want to use more than 600 milligrams a week. And so are you saying like that won't cut it?
I would say that would be for the person. What you'd be worried about that is getting your E1 numbers high enough to cover your sexual function for your E2. So for me, I felt like I was hypersexual around 1500. So where it was like I knew I was on cycle, and you know, and also, but mind you, I'm an experienced user, so I'm talking about physically for me. I would definitely start somebody and say, you know, see where you're at 600 or 700 a week, and also I didn't do this with MPP, so I'll say that I used normal Deca. I didn't go the MPP. I didn't go the feel appropriate route. I used long Deca. So I'm not saying that you could do this with MPP and everything would be the exact same. I haven't experimented that road, but I am thinking about that road.
Yeah, I had one question. So a lot of guys that use high testosterone, going a gram or above, over time, over the years, they develop some prostate issues, and just guys on steroids in general. It's something that's not really talked about. Is having to pee often, or waking up in the night peeing often, or having to like really press to get the urine out, which is like the prostate being swollen due to usually high testosterone, high estrogen. Have you ever had any problems like that? And if so, what has been the effect since you went on Deca only without testosterone?
So with anytime I had Masteron, which I think anybody that's done Masteron will know I'm speaking the truth. Anytime I've done Masteron, I'll piss 6 times a night, you know, while I'm trying to sleep.
Okay. Prostate, you know, from Masteron. Yeah, me too.
I will pee like nobody's business. I will get dry as can be.
What about with Deca though?
With Deca,
when you combine the Masteron with Deca, do you get the prostate issues?
I still have to pee more with Masteron. With Deca, my urine schedule's I'd say as normal as it could be anymore. I'm only peeing about twice a night, and I'm 36, so keep that in mind.
And is that less than what you were doing when you were on testosterone?
Oh yeah, when I was on test, I actually got to a point where when I was over a gram, I'd have to force it out. So you'd stand there, and you know how you'll press on your lower abdominal and hold your breath.
Yeah.
And then stand there for too long and let the last little dribble out. So I got that off test. I haven't seen it at all.
man, no one will talk about this shit. I'm glad you're saying this.
Well, it's true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've gotten none of that off Deca at all. If anything, I've gone back to just peeing like normal, and
Thank God.
yeah, and beautiful streams of it.
Yeah.
But my water again, and I know I said this multiple times. My diet's on point. I drink 2 gallons of water. I'm on point with that.
Mm-hmm.
Which people underestimate with holding water and everything else, where your water intake should be and what they should be doing. A lot of people, it doesn't do this for me, or I have this issue. But what they don't realize is a lot of times it's diet related, or it's water intake related, or there's so many things that you cause your own side by not doing what you could be doing.
Yeah.
But as you know, Dave, this is bodybuilding.
You like those Instagram posts with the meat? Yeah. This is bodybuilding. All right, man. Thank you so much for sharing what you have about your steroid use and everything. It's been really helpful. Is there anything else you wanted to add for everybody to hear?
No, Dan, I appreciate your show. It's out there for a reason. People need to hear the truth. They need to know that, sometimes the effects that they're wanting aren't done the way that they're being told. And, people need to know that, this is reality and this is not reality. And what you do is helpful to a lot of people with that regard. And, getting the bullshit out of there and putting a little bit of truth in the world. Everybody needs that. And, people living in this fantasy world that, I can do 250 tests and I can add 100 milligrams of this and I'm going to be there. It's just not reality. And if anything, it's hurting them. And they're not knowing enough. You listen to your show and the knowledge you drop on people, the knowledge that your book has, the ultimate guide to ROIDS. These are things that change people's lives and actually can set them down the correct road. So when you're doing this,
if you would like your questions to be answered
knowing
on
what you're talking
the
about,
Steroids
looking into
podcast,
educating
go to
yourself.
steroidspodcast.com and leave a comment with your questions.
What you do really educates a lot of people, and I appreciate
email or
Dan,
private message.
Thanks, man.
Steroidspodcast@gmail.com or steroidspodcast on Instagram.
All right. Well,
until
thanks
next
for coming
time
on this show today. Hopefully we'll be able to have you back sometime. It was a good talk, man, and take care for the rest of the weekend. And good luck with your bodybuilding. Good luck with your Deca and Equipoise cycles.
All right, brother. I'll keep you in touch on them.